Welcome, everyone. We're so glad that you're joining us here today, and I'm really excited to be introducing you to our special guest today, Banafsheh Sayyad. Banafsheh is a Persian master sacred dancer, choreographer, an acupuncturist, a transformational teacher, and she's the founder of the Dance of Oneness. As a highly profound and accessible spiritual teacher of embodiment, Banafsheh performs and teaches internationally, initiating people into the wisdom of our bodies. Banafsheh, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be with you today.
Wonderful. You know, here at the Mystic Summit, we've been exploring a lot of different flavors of mysticism, and I'm really excited to be talking to you today because you're really going to bring this home, literally, to this place that we live in. Not our heads, as so many of us tend to think, and not even solely our hearts, as important as those are. But you bring a flavor of how to incorporate the truth of mysticism in our bodies. So you have this saying that until our knowing is embodied, it's only a rumor. Can you tell us more about this? Why is this, and what do you mean?
Well, just like you said, so many of us live in our heads, and many of the ideas that we entertain and we believe in are also with our heads. And of course, we have times where we feel things fully and wholly in our hearts. But really, most of us function primarily through our heads. And the truths, mystical truths and ideas that have been, around since time immemorial, and ones that are, being created now, all of them, I feel, can be verified through our living, through living through our bodies. And if they're not, if you feel like there is something that you actually cannot embody and cannot really live, then I question its validity, Mike. Then it's a rumor.
That makes a lot of sense. How much effort and energy do we put in propping up systems of belief, maybe because other people say that they're true, because we maybe sincerely wish that they're true. But
yes.
I love the way you said that. We can validate the truth of a mystical practice or idea in our bodies. Can you elaborate on that? How do we validate mystical truth in our bodies?
So it's verifying them. It's saying, okay, so here is an idea. Can I really live it? Can I experience it in my body? As the Hermetic maxim, the famous Hermetic maxim goes, as above, so below. So everything that is a universal idea can be applied to our bodies as below. So, and that journey of verifying what is above in the below is quite exciting. It's quite exciting and quite illuminating. It makes things simple also. It simplifies some of these ideas. I feel like many of the mystical truths that we know of should be taken literally, actually. And the more literally you take them, the more they can help you in your day-to-day life. Does that make sense?
Well, I think so, but it's such an intriguing idea. Can you give me an example of a mystical truth that if I take it literally, that I can verify it in my body?
That's a great question, Mike. So an example is a beatitude from Jesus, where he says, "Blessed are those, healthy are those, who have softened what is rigid within. They shall receive physical vigor and strength from the universe." So if we take this softening what is rigid within literally, and relax and let go and surrender and try as much as possible to let go of some of our resistances, then we can come in touch with the universal flow of energy that he's actually calling physical vigor. So it becomes something very tangible. Does that
Wow.
make sense?
It does. It does. And you have developed an entire modality of inquiry and of movement that you call the dance of oneness. What is the dance of oneness all about, and how can people experience this?
So this modality that I've created works in three streams. It actually brings together three streams. One is dance and movement technique, drawing from different traditions. And another stream is wisdom teachings, mystical teachings, drawing from the Sufi teachings and the Taoist and divine feminine wisdom. Uh, the third stream is healing. So already by embodying these mystical teachings through movement, through dance, it is healing in itself. But I also draw from from Chinese medicine and the chakra system in this third stream. So these three streams I have experienced for myself and have seen it really verified by others. Coming together really creates an opportunity for us to come into wholeness, come into oneness.
Wow. So could you give me an example of what that might look like if I were coming into one of these dances of oneness? And I'll be very specific. Like, I'm someone who often resides in my head. I'm a writer for a living. I think, I read books. I would love to quote unquote be in my body more, but sometimes I don't know the first place where to begin. And to make matters worse, I have two left feet. So whenever I participate in dance, whether it's going out dancing with friends in a fun and casual setting, or whether it's participating in a more sacred movements kind of context, sometimes I get even more in my head because I'm like, am I doing this right? So how does this threefold cord that you weave through your dance of oneness, how can it help somebody like me?
Ah, great question. And by the way, I think having two left feet is quite interesting. It's quite unique. So you could make something really fun out of that. Um, yeah, so it would actually be very interesting for someone like you because you're interested in ideas, you're a writer, you're a thinker. So what we do in Dance of Oneness isn't just movement, although that is great in itself. It's being inspired by ideas, just like the one I quoted from Jesus, and dancing with them, letting them be your focus as you're moving. But to answer your question in terms of where do you begin with your breath, coming in touch with your breath. The more you're in touch with your breath, the more you begin to reside in your body.
Okay. And so, how, as you develop this, your line of work, sacred dance, how has it helped you to embody mystical truths more in your life?
So for me, what is central in the dance, in sacred dance, is surrendering my habitual thinking and stepping into the unknown, so that you're coming to a place, to a state where you've let go of your expectations, let go of what you know, so that something new can emerge. Not even with the expectation of something new emerging, but just to be in the present moment and available to whatever wants to emerge. So surrendering and letting go is key for me, and that's what how it's helped me a lot throughout the years. And that this is how I receive my knowing, if you will. Like an embodied knowing, and it's a visceral knowing. And sometimes it cannot really even be articulated in words. It's a feeling.
Right. Appropriately enough, I imagine, for if the body is one of our main vehicles to verify these truths. So it seems like dance of oneness is such an eclectic path. It's drawing from just what you've named here of Sufism and Taoism and Chinese medicine and the insights of Jesus. I'm just super curious how you found this path, Banafsheh, or maybe if it's more accurate to say how this path found you.
Yes, the path found me. I was always interested in dance. Dance has been a big passion of mine since I was very young. And the other passion has been the divine. Who and what is the divine, and what is my purpose here? What is the meaning of life? So being inspired by this kind of inquiry and being a dancer and having that passion, over time they just merged. And of course I became more and more interested in the paths in the mystical traditions that also revered the body. You know, Mike, as you may know, we don't have a lot of mystical traditions that do revere the body. Most of our systems, most of our spiritual and religious systems denigrate the body. We're meant to transcend. And so I became more and more drawn to traditions like the Taoist tradition, where the body is central, and all of our experiences, all of our heightened experiences, our spiritual experiences, are through the body. So being more drawn to those traditions, and also the divine feminine tradition, the feminine aspect of our being is the body, is matter. So just naturally I was drawn to them. In the Sufi path, you can say that much of the teachings is also about transcendence. But I have been inspired to look at the teachings differently, to interpret them in a way that does unify body and soul. So a path of Sufism is a path of love, love bringing the body and soul together as an example.
Do you ever find that as you are uncovering or even innovating elements of embodiment within established spiritual traditions, have you ever faced controversy? Have you ever faced people who come from those traditions and maybe don't see it in the same embodied way as you? You ever come under fire for your ways of teaching and living differently?
Oh yes, oh yes. Unfortunately, but that's just probably normal for whoever is doing a different kind of interpretation, right? You know, I remember reading when I was very young in the Sufi texts, reading about how the body is the cage of the soul, and even though I was young, I just knew immediately that that's not true. That's just not true. I think many of the other ideas are something I can resonate with, but not this one. For me, it feels that our thinking is the cage, not the body. And we're learning more and more through findings of physics that body, energy, and matter are really one and the same, and that our bodies are actually made of 99.9999% energy. So where does matter begin and energy, where does matter end and energy begin is very subtle. So but looking at it this way, looking at the body as exalted, did get me into trouble with people who chose to read, the tradition as it has been handed down, where body is seen as the cage of the soul. And I feel that this kind of thinking creates such a such a big problem, as it's very dualistic. So much of what we see as our challenges in our world today stem from this kind of dualistic thinking of separating spirit and matter, spirit and nature, soul and body, and holding one higher than the other. It's completely a construct that it's completely a human construct and super arbitrary, I feel.
I agree. I think that the context in which a lot of our religious and spiritual traditions arose really did experience a lot of human suffering. And perhaps some of those who were our visionaries, our seers, our writers, truly did want to escape this life and escape this world. And I find it to be a natural and understandable way that they express themselves when they say things like our body is a cage for the soul, but it's also really sad. And, I think that there are better ways, like what you are articulating, what you're paving the way for here. And I'm wondering if beyond that, very overt statement that just didn't resonate in your body, that your body was some kind of a cage, have there been other supposed mystical truths that turned out to only be rumors once you tested them in your body?
I love that. Probably, well, I don't know if you can say, I think, therefore I am is a mystical truth. Would you say that it is a mystical truth?
Some
Or,
people have exalted that to the level of mystical truth, so sure.
or it's a theory, right?
Right,
It's
yeah,
a theory.
yeah,
So
exactly.
that one, I would say, having experienced that, I would say that you can being isn't dependent on thinking. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would. I mean, sometimes I might not know that I'm being without thinking. I'm so habitually connected to my thoughts and identified with them. But sometimes when I'm truly in a flow state, it does seem like being just resonates in a way that maybe doesn't negate my mind, but it certainly isn't primarily located there.
It's not, yeah, it's not specific to thinking, right? I feel like thinking is one aspect of our being, and states like samadhi, states of union, where that we hear about that and that we experience, we have glimpses of, we have momentary experiences of, also show us that being is larger than thinking. It certainly incorporates it. And I certainly am not a person who would deny something like thinking in you know in favor of being. It's all we need to include all of our aspects. That's oneness to me.
I love that. So that was a rumor that you were able to dispel by inquiry. On the other hand, are there mystical ideas or propositions that might sound pretty insignificant to our thinking rational mind, but when you sought to verify those in your body, is there something that has surprised you with just how resonant it is, just how powerful it is?
Yeah, well, I would say, how we talk about having an inner sun, let's say sun, that you can really experience that, especially through movement. When you, as I quoted earlier from Jesus, especially when you soften what is rigid inside, you can come in touch with a source of power, a sun within, that can sometimes feel literal in its amplitude and its capability and capacity to radiate. So connected to that, when we say, if you feel down, and if you feel depressed, or your energy is low, the light is not shining as much. This is connected to this inner sun. And when you're not feeling good about yourself, this light is dim. And just when you start to feel good about yourself, and you have some confidence and some joy, this light begins to shine, and it literally lights up our face, lights up our eyes, and you can feel it be transferred to others.
Hmm. So the growth of this inner sun, or the magnification of it, is coming through what? Through movement?
It can come through movement and through breath, but it's very dependent on how you feel about yourself. how you feel about yourself. And so, this sun is in the solar plexus, and the solar plexus chakra is the chakra of self, very much about how do I feel about myself.
So if someone's tuning in right now and they're saying, I don't actually feel that great about myself. I find myself frequently comparing myself to others, being hypercritical of how I show up in the world. Maybe I even have someone I'm trying to impress, or even a beloved who it's just not resonating right now, and I'm just taking that really personally, and I'm internalizing that. What is the method, particularly through the dance of oneness, through maybe your threefold chord? How do I elevate my own sense of who I am beyond these conditioned responses and these echo chambers around me?
Well, it begins with really seeing them, observing them, recognizing that's how you're functioning. That's part of how you're interacting, and the decision of, do I want this? Do I truly want to be like this? Do I truly want to choose this? Because we choose, Mike, right? We choose how we feel. We choose how we show up. We have that level of, we have the ability to choose our state. So through the movement, now I can be very specific, but I will just say generally, through moving, through a kind of moving where we feel rooted, we ground ourselves and connect with the earth through our feet, through our letting our tailbone release down and also connect energetically with the earth. We start establishing a kind of connection and a kind of support from which we can then breathe into our solar plexus and center ourselves and come in touch with this inner sun that I was talking about. The inner sun, it resides lower than the solar plexus, not now getting very specific, but it moves through the solar plexus and the heart and the whole body. So coming in touch with the sun through moving, through breathing, inhaling, letting it expand, and exhaling, returning to its center, we start to feel a kind of sovereignty, a kind of well-being inside ourselves that's not so dependent on what others think and what is happening outside of us.
Hmm. And this sense of sovereign well-being, I suppose, ideally is transferable off of the dance floor, off of the movements floor, into more and more of our daily rhythms. Yes.
Yes, the whole aim of this dance is how it can inform your day-to-day life, how it can support you moving in your day-to-day life at a bigger potential, at a higher level of functioning.
Hmm. Well, let's get more specific if you want. If someone is wanting to become a practitioner of this dance, what does a weekly rhythm look like? How much time am I putting into this every day, every week? What does it look like?
That's a great question. Every day, practicing every day is very important. Now, if you can put in up to an hour, that's great. But if the person doesn't have that kind of time, then at least half an hour to really ground yourself, center yourself, and open your heart and come in touch with how there's something greater than what is around us, what is in our day-to-day life, and connecting with that, whatever name you have for this greater energy, consciousness, the divine, love, connecting with that in a visceral way, coming in touch with the breath. So establishing that is very key. So everyday practice. This is important for people who want to be practitioners of this modality or not. This is very important, I feel, for all of us to stay afloat. I'm always amazed that people can go without having a daily practice and still be so nice and still have so much energy. I couldn't do it. I have to have that daily anchor of remembering who I am and who I want to be.
Yeah, I hear you. It's, I think a lot of people think, well, how do I have time for a daily practice? My life is so busy. And, a lot of us legitimately are living very busy lives these days, but it's interesting how much certain things are designed to suck our time. The apps on our phones, for instance, and the various entertainment we consume. And what might it look like to even just start apportioning a little bit of the time that I might be mindlessly scrolling my phone into a wonderful movement modality like Dance of Oneness? Those incremental changes can change our entire being, right?
Yes, yes, and you'll find more energy to do what you're doing in your busy life when you give yourself that amount of time every day to really foster this relationship between your body and your soul, body and mind and heart and soul, to create this integration, this coherence. It really goes a long way.
Mhm. So, Banafsheh, as we're bringing our time here together to a close, I'm wondering if you have any parting words of wisdom for us on how we have the power to show up every moment and to choose how we feel and show up in the world.
Yeah, trusting that our state is what we're choosing, and that we have that power to choose how we show up, because the energy that has created the whole universe, created universes, runs through us and is us. And with every action, every word, every thought, every belief, every movement, we're influencing space time. We're influencing the fabric of the universe in this feedback loop. So this is both exciting and also it can also be overwhelming. So the more we learn to reside not just in our heads but in our whole body, including our head, we have much more capacity to come in touch with how we are constantly in this dance of in this feedback loop that's like a dance of this interaction, this reciprocity with the greater existence. And no matter what challenges we face, we have the choice to we have the power to choose how we feel and show up within those challenges, given those challenges, and seeing how everything, as Rumi says, evolves us. Everything evolves us.
Hmm. So what I'm hearing you say is that we're actually always involved in the dance of oneness with everything else around us, whether we realize it or not. So, how much better would it be to consciously step into this dance as a willing dance partner to go forth and to practice with zest and vigor?
I love that. I love what you're saying. Yes, it is a dance of oneness. It is a dance of oneness, this life.
Well, thank you so much, Banafsheh, for giving us this rich insight into the mystical wisdom of our bodies. Really appreciate it. If
Thank you.
people, yeah, if people are wanting to track more of what you're doing online, they can obviously go to danceofoneness.org. And can you give us a little bit of a flavor of what's on your horizon? What are you working on right now? What's next?
Yes, I'm teaching a course called Liberate Your Body with Sufi and expressive dance on the Shift Network platform that I'm very excited about. It's a 12-week course. It's an initiation into the wisdom of the body and the healing powers of the sacred feminine. So uh, we'll journey into embodiment, learning about the organs and the physiology of the body, and tracking the meridians, and exploring the sacred feminine archetypes as they correspond to each chakra, so that we can bring the feminine and masculine energies into balance within ourselves and thereby in the world. So this is the course that I'm doing that I'm very excited about.
Beautiful. That sounds so rich and vital and needed. Thank you again, Banafsheh.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone who's tuning in. I hope that this resonates with you. I hope whether it's the dance of oneness or another embodied practice, that you don't leave your beautiful frame out of your mystical inquiry and your life of embracing everything that's around us.